Hello, welcome once again to Pale Blends and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists that I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Keith Potger is an Australian singer-songwriter, guitarist, and producer who was a founding member of the Australian folk pop group, The Seekers. The group began in 1962 as Judith Durham, Athol Guy, Bruce Woodley, and Keith. By the time of breaking up in 1968, the band had released 10 albums and a whole slew of singles, EPs, and compilations. In 1969, Keith co-founded English pop group, The New Seekers, with more of an emphasis on a pop sound. The original lineup included Keith, Laurie Heath, Chris Barrington, Marty Kristian, Eve Graham, and Sally Graham. The band would see many lineup changes over the years. The New Seekers would be active from 1969 to 74, and then again from 1976 to 2010. After returning to Australia in 1978, Keith would go on to write and produce TV jingles, play live during the 1980s, and record a trio of solo albums in the new millennium. Well, welcome, Keith.
Hi there, Greg. How you doing?
I forgot to ask you, what is that behind you there?
Oh, that is I'm in my studio at the moment, and that is a bear skin, and I use it as my as a way of cutting out frequencies in the studio, and it works. It works a treat.
All the uses for bearskin, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
I could tell it was some kind of animal pelt.
Well, that's right. It put up quite a struggle, I can tell you.
Did you take it down with your bare hands?
Oh, good one. I like that. Yeah, very good. I can't bear jokes like that.
You can't bear it. But okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Colombo, Ceylon, as that little island was called in those days, but now called Sri Lanka. And I was born at a very early age, and I moved with my family to Australia in 1948 when I was just coming up 7 years of age.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, do you recall hearing music in the household when you were young?
Yes, very much so. My dad was a very good singer, and he played the banjo ukulele. And I had an uncle who was a very fine guitarist, and so there was music in our household. And I don't recall it actually being any kind of influence at that time. It was more just the fact that it was around, I suppose. But then it wasn't until I got to Australia that I started taking more of an interest in music itself.
Right, right. Yeah, I've heard that doing these interviews. The ukulele a lot of times was like the first instrument, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
It was
It's a great way of getting into music.
Yeah, right. It was
Yeah.
more affordable than the guitar, you know.
Oh, yeah, and certainly easier on the fingers.
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Well, were either one of your parents musical at all, musically inclined?
Well, my mother certainly was not, but my father did. Was a good singer, but no, he really wasn't all that interested in music because he acquired a guitar through a correspondence course in Melbourne, Australia, and then he became disinterested in it, and after a year or so, and he left the guitar lying around, and that's when I picked it up and started getting interested in it. So I must have been about 12 years, 13 years of age when that happened.
Okay, okay. You were an opportunist with the guitar lying around.
Oh yes, well he left it lying around, and it was amazing how much better it sounded once I put strings on it. That was
That's like, you know what I tell people? I said, I'm not a musician, but when I was young, I could play a mean tennis racket. I could just, the only thing
oh yeah.
I could never get it tuned just right, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of girl singers play the hairbrush, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, yes, they sure do. Well, so the guitar was the first instrument that you learned you played.
Yeah, it was pretty much the only instrument really. I dabbled a little bit on drums, but it was mainly guitar because it helped me with my harmony work, writing harmonies and also writing songs. I suppose it was an early accompaniment.
Can you recall one of the first singles or albums that you got?
First single that I ever bought was the Platters singing "The Great Pretender," and I was big on harmony groups, and so consequently, it would have been what was that 19, whatever it was, 19, was the Great Pretender anyway, and so harmony groups like that, and the Four Lads. I loved the jazzy sort of sounds of the high-lows and the Four Freshmen as well.
Yes, yes.
Brian Wilson was the Beach Boys was very much influenced by the Four Freshmen, and I had a group before the Seekers that was a kind of a doo-wop group, and we modeled ourselves on the Diamonds, and that was so we used to use those sorts of harmonies, but then also the Four Freshmen kind of harmonies, more jazz orientated and a bit more difficult to sing actually. So we gave that up straight away.
Yes, I remember the days of the. Well, I didn't live through them, but I just lived through history, the street corner singing and that kind of thing, the doo-wop.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, Oh, it was a great way of passing the time, and you were always one was always interested in finding members of the opposite gender, and so that was a way of doing it. You could
Yes. I knew right where you were going with that one.
Yeah. Take the easy way out. Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Well, how about, can you recall one of the first live shows or concerts that you attended, that you went to?
That I attended. Oh, well, I was very lucky actually, because when I was just after leaving school, I joined a record company, W&G Records, in Melbourne, and because of that, I had access to going along to some of the concerts that were taking place in Melbourne at that time. And one that really stands out to me was the Buddy Holly concert when he toured with the Crickets, and that was late 1958, and so I saw him. And there were other concerts like Bill Haley and Danny and the Juniors, I think, came out, and Chuck Berry I saw live. I was really lucky. But the Buddy Holly concert is the one that kind of sticks in my mind, because he was such a hero to me, and it was only a few months before he died in the plane crash.
Right. Well, you were fortunate enough to be able to see before that happened. Wow. Yes. Yes. Well, how about some other early musical influences and artists for you?
Well, certainly I got into folk music as quickly as I could because Pete Seeger toured Australia, and now we're moving along to 1963 when he came out, and I was lucky enough to first of all go along to his concert in Melbourne Town Hall, and it was interesting because because of his so-called communist activities, he had not been able to leave America, and until 1963, and when he did, he conducted this world tour, and Australia was one of the first stops on that tour. So Melbourne Town Hall, and Bruce Woodley was at that concert as well.
Is that right?
And the icing on the cake, if you like, was the fact that he conducted a workshop in a little hall in South Melbourne, and Bruce and I went along to that, and so we were able to meet the great man and have a look at his long neck banjo and do all that sort of stuff. So it was really a very very exciting time for both of us, and we each of us remembers it quite clearly.
Yeah, it's very eye-opening and ear-opening that time.
Oh, absolutely. It was tremendous. And so then got more into banjo playing, as did Bruce, and so it expanded. And that was when I realized that I wanted to play and acquire a 12-string guitar. So I eventually got that 12-string guitar when we went to England.
Okay. Well, had you and Bruce met previously, or was that concert the first time?
Well, coincidentally, we were at school together,
Okay.
but Bruce was a year behind me. Athol Guy was at the same school, Melbourne High School, and he was a year ahead of me. And so, you know how school things work. There's this kind of strata system, and you don't mix all that much. I knew about Athol Guy because he was a very fine athlete, and he held a few local records for the high jump and hurdles and things like that. So he was a bit high profile, but I didn't really know Bruce. And I'm talking about, we're going back in time now to the late 50s, when my exit year from Melbourne High School was 1958. And so I really didn't know Bruce at that stage. It wasn't until we formed the Seekers that I met Bruce, because Athol was working with Bruce Woodley at an advertising agency, and it was through that connection that we all got together. And so by the time we attended that concert at the Melbourne Town Hall with Pete Seeger, we'd had the Seekers going for about 15 months at that stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, was there any kind of music scene bubbling around you as a teen in Melbourne?
Oh, the music scene in Melbourne was interesting because it tended towards more acoustic material, whereas the music scene in Sydney was more kind of rock and roll and electric music. And it was Melbourne was known for its coffee lounges and those sorts of casual places, a bit like the scene in New York City,
Yeah.
and around the Greenwich Village type scene, whereas Sydney was more the rock and roll electric scene. So consequently, when we formed the Seekers in early 1962, our main gig was at a coffee lounge in a suburb of Melbourne. So that was the whole basis of it, and it was all acoustic. There were no microphones. We just sat in a corner of this coffee lounge and played our instruments and sang.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you before that about Triamics.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, Triamics, yes.
That was
Well,
more rock, more.
I
That was
can't.
more rock and roll, right? Was that more?
It was a funny sort of repertoire, actually, because I think all of us, the first of all, the Triamics formed when there were three of us, and we formed when I was in what was it, what we call year 11 here, so fifth form. I don't know what it is in America, the equivalent, but anyway, fifth
I think
form, and
I think it's
it
like a
was a year.
junior. I think it's a
Yeah,
junior. Is it the year before you graduate, right?
that's it. Exactly
Okay.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
junior.
Yeah. All right. So that's it. And so the three of us, we formed the Triamics, and uh, I guess most of our work at that stage was in backing vocals for local solo artists, and we did okay. But then because we were at school, we had to concentrate on um, on our schoolwork. And then the following year, which was the graduation year, a friend of ours, a school friend, joined us, and we became a quartet. And we continued doing that sort of backing kind of vocal work, and it was just not all that successful because we didn't have the time to dedicate it to that music. But I was playing guitar at that stage, and the rest of the group didn't play an instrument. But we we sang whatever we could. But the repertoire was old. You know, my parents' record collection was sort of Glenn Miller and Tommy Dorsey and that sort of thing. So I was drawn to that kind of music, and I dragged the rest of the group into that, you know. And so we were singing we were singing old songs, which
drag them kicking and screaming into that.
yeah. But we didn't fit into the music scene because it was starting to develop into rock and roll at that stage, and it just, anyway, so we gave that up, and that group disbanded, and Athol Guy had a trio at pretty much the same time after he had left school, and his group disbanded, and the Triamics disbanded, and out of those two groups came a new group called the Escorts. And do you have that in your timeline there?
No, I didn't have that. So
you didn't know that one? Oh, this is news, folks.
Shame on
you hear it. Yeah, you hear it first with Greg Shanks.
I'm being stumped. The first time I'm being stumped. No, it's not the first time.
Oh, okay. So we called ourselves the Escorts, and I don't know what the word escort connotation is in America, but
it's probably the same. I think
you know what it means. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's not the sort of name you'd give to a group these days, but anyway, that was the doo-wop group, and we were the Australian version of the Diamonds, or those sorts of people, the Four Aces, all that lot. And then, but that group did have some success. We did quite a lot of television, and it was okay, but no recordings. We were performers and no recordings.
Okay. Then pick up the story about the formation of the Seekers.
So that was the lead up to the Seekers, because by the time the Escorts became a trio because Athol Guy dropped out. He had to drop out of the group. He had a bronchial issue, and he left the group. And we proceeded as a trio. And it was then that it was while Athol was recuperating from his bronchial issues that he met Bruce Woodley, and one of the members of the Escorts, Ken Ray, and I joined up with Athol and Bruce to form the original Seekers. So the Seekers were four chaps, and then that was in the very early part of 1962. Ken then met this lovely lady, and they decided to get married, and so Ken thought, well, he'll leave the group because he didn't think that marriage and group singing was all that compatible.
Right.
Probably his soon-to-be wife thought the same thing.
Yes.
And anyway, so he left, and that was when Judith Durham joined the group. So it was at the end of 1962 that Judith Durham first joined Athol Guy, Bruce Woodley, and me to form the Seekers, as most people know the group now.
Yes. What had Judith done previously? What had she done before?
She had been making quite a name for herself as a solo singer with traditional jazz bands and around Melbourne, and so we knew of her. She was just starting to make a name for herself, and she, as luck would have it, she came to work in the same advertising agency as Athol Guy was working in, and so Athol was able to approach her and say, well, how about coming along and joining us at the coffee lounge where we were singing. So the dear girl, bless her little heart, she said yes. And
she,
I
she
think
fell.
she lived
fell
to
for it.
regret that.
I was going to
She
say
fell-
she fell for that line.
yeah, fell for that line. Oh, he was very persuasive. Athol Guy was. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But,
Well, let me ask you about Athol. Did he outgrow his bronchial
oh yes, yeah,
problem?
but yeah, he
Okay.
recuperated. Yeah,
Okay.
eventually, he's a very fine basso singer. His bass singing range, and no, he outgrew that. Yes,
Oh,
recuperated very well.
all right. Well, you weren't allowed to be pictured on the cover of the first album,
Yeah, that
introducing
was
introducing Seekers. Why was that?
that was a silly situation because when the Escorts, if you can follow the timeline, when the Escorts were having their trio iteration, shall we say,
Yes.
I we were doing quite a lot of work for national broadcaster, the ABC, and so I developed a really good working relationship with the ABC, and they offered me a job when the Escorts disbanded. So I joined their employ, and they had this silly rule that you weren't supposed to have a second job. You were supposed to be married to the ABC, and so when I started singing, when we started the Seekers, and I started singing, I had to disguise myself for photographs in
Did
case
you?
the ABC executive saw me and said, "Hello, you're not supposed to have a second job." But it was a bit silly, really, and they all knew what I was doing.
So they wanted you exclusively to themselves.
Oh yeah, very much
Yeah.
so. Yeah, very ownership was very important to them at that stage.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
how did tell the story how the band found their way to the UK?
We were lucky enough when we were doing the coffee lounge gig. We started to build up quite a devoted audience, and then Athol was. We all had day jobs, and Athol Guy was still working at an advertising agency that had as one of its clients, a shipping company, the Sitmar shipping line, and he got one of their executives to come along to the Treble Clef Coffee Lounge, and they liked what they saw, and they offered us some spots on their ships doing cruises around South Pacific islands like Fiji and Tonga, etc. And so we did a few of those. I'm now talking about 1963, and we must have done 4 or 5 of these cruises, still keeping our day jobs. Then in early 1964, they approached us and said, "How about you sing and play on one of our ships going to England, and then you get off at England in Southampton, and stay there for 10 weeks while the ship comes back to Australia, and we'll pick you up in 10 weeks after that." And we jumped at that chance, and then they said, "All right, after that you come back and you do some more cruises." And 1964 being the year of the Tokyo Olympics, they said, "You stay on the ship, go to Tokyo, play and sing on the ship, come back, do some more cruises." So effectively what they were saying was, take the whole of 1964 off and join us on one of our ships. So that was too good an offer to refuse. So we all gave up our jobs, jumped on the ship in, well, it would have been April of 1964, arrived in England in May of 1964, and intending to stay there for 10 weeks and come back to Australia. But in the meantime, we had made an album, a vinyl album, and we sent that across to a booking agency in America, along with a recording of a video recording of one of our TV appearances. And unbeknown to us, the booking agency that we'd sent it to was so impressed with what we'd sent that they started booking us some gigs. And so when we arrived in England, they'd already lined up all these gigs for us, and so we started to become quite popular, which meant that we had to break our 10-week arrangement with the Sidmar Shipping Company, and they weren't all that pleased, as you can imagine. That's right. They're a bit pissed off, actually. Yeah. Anyway, but luckily they came around because they saw that all the publicity that we were giving them, whenever we were interviewed, we always mentioned their name, so they were getting huge amounts of publicity. So that was it. The 10 weeks grew into 4 years. So it was amazing.
Well, what was that the folk scene like around that time in the UK?
Well, it was huge. Again, there were these pockets like the New York scene where you had areas of Soho that had the folk clubs, and there were lots of folk clubs in the regions. You know, when we were doing our shows in a folk environment, we'd be going places like Scotland and Cornwall, places like that, you know, where there were those sorts of venues. But the important thing was that when we started to do quite a lot of television, and so our folk image started to diminish, shall we say, because we were generally doing more dressy-uppy things like wearing suits and ties, and Judith was wearing long dresses and that sort of thing. So it didn't look very folky at all. So we were tending to get into more of a mainstream, almost cabaret environment, and that's really where we found our niche. Still playing acoustic instruments, of course, that was the thing. So again, I think we were unique in that respect when you had other acts that were really popular in the UK playing electric instruments, and we still stuck with our acoustic stuff and four-part harmony.
Which of the TV shows did you enjoy the most performing?
Well, we were lucky enough to do some Sunday night at the London Palladium, and we did quite a lot of work for the BBC. We did a couple of mini series for them, and there was a BBC TV show, a series called Sing Out in Scotland, that was done from Edinburgh, and we would go up every week for that. That was really fun, because we were then mixing with more folky orientated people, and we could put away our suits and casual clothes and things like that.
Like the casual.
Yeah, but generally the shows were. We did a 2 series for the commercial television network there, called with an Irish singer, Ronnie Carroll was his name. Ronnie Carroll. Yeah, okay. He was very popular, and so we did 2 series as one of the featured guests on his show, and that helped enormously. I'm talking about 1964 now, when before we'd made our first record for EMI, but by that time we had already made 2 albums for the World Record Club. And they were quite popular among World Record Club subscribers, and so we started to make a name for ourselves as a recording group.
Well, how were you signed to EMI? Do you recall that?
Well, the albums that we'd made for the World Record Club were on a kind of album basis. They didn't sign us on any kind of long-term contract. Our agent, Eddie Jarrett, who then became our manager, he realized that if we were going to get anywhere, we'd need to have a single record. And so he went looking for an act. songwriter for the act. Coincidentally, because of my desire to get a 12-string guitar, I wanted to reach out to Tom Springfield, who
Yes.
was the main songwriter for the Springfields,
Yes.
and he had this wonderful 12-string guitar. Also, coincidentally, we did a what they call a Sunday concert in Blackpool with Dusty Springfield.
Yeah.
And Dusty Springfield helped me get to Tom Springfield. By that time, unfortunately, he'd sold his 12-string guitar. But Eddie Jarrett thought, well, Tom Springfield writing songs for the Springfields who had broken up, he might be a good chap to approach to see whether he had any material for the Seekers. And in fact, he did have a song, and it was called "I'll Never Find Another You." And he hadn't quite finished it at the time that he brought it to us, but he was impressed enough by this album that we'd made as well. So he knew what our capabilities were. And he finished off "I'll Never Find Another You," and I by that time I'd bought my 12-string guitar, and I arranged that, got that riff going and things like that. And so in something like October of 1964, we recorded it. And once we had had that material, Eddie Jarrett was able to approach EMI and say, "How about it?" Now he gave them a big spiel, and he and Eddie and Tom Springfield formed a production company. And so we were actually signed to their production company, which was then signed to EMI. And it was probably the first example of that kind of arrangement where that the act wasn't signed directly to EMI. I think if Brian Epstein had done that with the Beatles, they would have been trillionaires rather than just mere billionaires. So,
right. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen. There you go. But that was the first. That was the arrangement. So once we'd recorded "I'll Never Find Another You," that became successful, and we then recorded an album and went on to record a lot more.
Yeah. Well, you would tap into Tom's songwriting. He would also a couple of other "A World of Our Own" and "The Carnival Is Over."
Yes.
And they would fare pretty well as well. Those tracks. Yeah.
Well, that was in 1965. We had three number ones, and I think we were the first group at that time, certainly the first Australian group to have that kind of record success in 1965, and that was a big year for us.
Yes. Was it starting to go to your heads a little bit?
Totally. We became yes.
We're big time.
We were very lucky, Greg, I got to say, because coming from down home, Melbourne town, and we were good friends. We were like a little family, so I think we kept each other grounded. And although I suppose we went to music clubs and did all that sort of stuff, but our music was generally regarded as what they say middle of the road, MOR, and so we weren't doing the kind of rock and roll hedonistic things that that other groups were doing.
Right. Well, yeah, there's a part part of it. I said there is that part of putting yourself out there, the exposure.
Oh yeah.
But then there's also the timing and the luck has a whole lot to do with it too.
Yes.
Being at the right place. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, as I say, we were so lucky getting as much television as we did, because people, that was the way to. We found our biggest promotion was the fact that we were able to do these seasons with TV personalities when other groups were not.
Right. That really helped the exposure there as far as that went. Yeah. Well, another track that I don't know who who wrote this one, Morningtown Ride. Was that another Tom, or did somebody else write that?
No, that was
Morning.
written by Malvina Reynolds,
Oh,
and the story
oh,
about that one, and Malvina Reynolds wrote Little Boxes, as you may know, Little Boxes, and Pete Seeger had
oh,
that
yeah,
huge hit
yes,
with it, yeah. But
yes.
and people think that Pete Seeger wrote it, but in fact Malvina Reynolds wrote it. But
No.
uh, even before we had left to go to England, I was still working at the ABC, and I'd come across this album by the American group, the Limelighters, and
Oh,
the album's called Through Children's Eyes, and on that
yes.
album is Morningtown Ride, and I loved the song, and I rearranged it for the Seekers, and so we actually had it in our repertoire before we left to go to England. But because Tom was writing all these amazing songs for us once we got there, Morningtown Ride got pushed into the background until 1966, when we were looking for a Christmas record, and we suddenly remembered it and re-recorded it, and away it went. It became our Christmas hit in 1966.
You know that that's something you mentioned, the Limelighters. I know a lot of people watching this are not familiar with that band. My dad
Yeah.
had two or three of their albums, I know,
Uh-huh.
and that's where I
Yeah.
first heard them. He was
Right.
heavily into the folk music, I think,
Yes.
and that kind of
I
thing.
think
So,
a version of the Limelight is still touring.
is
I
that
think
right?
the
Is that
banjo, Alex Hasseleff might still be touring the band, actually. But anyway, they were running parallel to the Kingston Trio, you know,
yeah,
those
yes,
folky trios with a banjo and a couple of guitars,
yeah,
and
yes,
certainly they had their own following as well, because Lou Gottlieb, the bass player, was a wonderful raconteur. They had lovely humor to their stage presence. But
yeah.
yeah,
Wasn't
and
what
the album. Sorry.
I was going to say, wasn't Glenn Yarbrough also in the group?
Yeah, Glenn Yarbrough
Yes,
was the main
yes,
singer.
yes,
Wonderful tenor voice, very emotional sort of tenor voice. Yeah, so that was it. Lou Gottlieb, Alex Haslev, and Glenn Yarbrough were the original Limelighters. But they did this live album called Through Children's Eyes, where they had a group of kids, and there's still a couple of tracks there that I wanted to was hoping that the Seekers would record, because I thought we could have had a hit with a couple more of their of their tracks, but it wasn't to be. But
yeah.
Morningtown Ride
Well,
just became an enormous hit.
yeah. Well, another artist that you would meet there, and then you would end up writing and also tapping some of songs from him was Paul Simon. How did you guys meet Paul?
Yeah, Paul Simon. That was an interesting connection too, because in 1965, Paul Simon had just uh, separated uh, from uh,
Art.
Art Garfunkel,
That's
and
okay.
so Art was in New York, and Paul came across to London to try his luck in the folk scene in London. And as it turned out, he employed a publicity person who was the same publicity person that we had, and that was how we met Paul, and Bruce Woodley wrote a couple of songs with Paul Simon, and
Yes.
and Paul thought he'd have a shot at writing a song for us, and he ended up writing Someday One Day, which became a top 10 hit for us, and that was all lovely. And Bruce wrote a couple of songs. I Wish You Could Be Here was one song, and his most famous one was Red Rubber Ball.
Red Rubber
And
Ball.
Red Rubber Ball, and there was another song that called Cloudy, that Paul uh, reckons Bruce didn't have any writing credit for, or needed any writing, but in fact I think that they did write that song together. But unfortunately, you know, Paul Simon has pretty much turned his back on the work that he did with us, because from once Sounds of Silence took off in America. He and Art reunited, and of course everyone knows what the story is from there. But they didn't have a very friendly relationship, as everyone knows, and so Paul has gone his merry way. But then Red Rubber Ball, we recorded that as an album track, and Brian Epstein's group, The Circle, recorded it, and they had #1 hit in America with it. Well, yeah, bloody hell, we had the original recording of it. Crazy, isn't it?
It's funny.
Just goes to
Funny
show.
how
Yeah,
things like that. That's right.
Yeah, you can't win them all.
No, you can't. No, you can't. Well, yeah, I really enjoy I Wish You Could Be Here. That's a nice song.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah, it's a lovely
favorite.
song. Yeah,
Yes,
it's a lovely
yes.
song.
I think that's my favorite collaboration between the two, Bruce and Paul, I think.
Yeah, yes, lovely. And and the guitar, the double guitar work that Bruce and I did on that is, it's very, very gentle and appropriate, obviously. Yeah.
Right. I wanted to say before I forget, I've always loved the sound of the 12-string guitar.
Oh, yeah. Well, it certainly formed the sort of bedrock of a lot of our work, and yeah, it's good. I still have I still have my original, well, not the original, but I have my 1967 12-string guitar, which I treasure and revere, and it's just lovely.
How many guitars do you have in your collection?
Too many. I have like everybody. Do they call it gas there in America? Gas.
Yeah.
It's called guitar acquisition syndrome.
Oh, syndrome, is that what it is? Okay.
Gas. Oh, he's suffering from gas. It doesn't mean the same as the other kind of gas.
I like that. Do you know the term brain fart? Have you heard the term?
Yes.
When you forget something, and I do that quite a bit. So I must have a lot of gas up in my head because I get a brain fart. Yeah.
I've got gas on my shelves and in my cupboards. Many too many.
Yes, too many. Well, then in December '66 came Georgie Girl. And that probably, as far as people over here, I mean, it was the biggest hit in America of all of your songs. But I think that's probably the one that you're most remembered for, that track.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. If we want to talking to anyone in America and say how to identify the Seekers, we say, well, Georgia Girl. Yeah, it has to be Georgia Girl. Yeah, that was, and we were the first Australian group to have a #1 record in America and it was with Georgia Girl.
Yeah. That's a lovely song. I mean, I still, it's so evocative of that time period too.
Yeah, it is indeed.
It really is.
Yeah.
Well, you speaking of TV shows, you played a couple of times on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah, we did. World of Our Own. When World of Our Own was released, we played that live on the Ed Sullivan Show, and also, in 1967, we were part of the Australian contingent at the Expo in Montreal, and Ed Sullivan did one of his TV shows from Montreal at that stage, and we were on that particular show as well. So he was a good friend to us, although with his diminishing memory banks, I don't know whether he remembered.
He remembered that at all.
The early time that we were on. He was a lovely man.
Oh well, I think that's the first time doing these interviews that a band or artist had played on the Ed Sullivan Show. They played all these other shows, but I think this is the first time that I've talked to somebody.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah,
I think so. Well, go ahead.
There's still some visual of on YouTube of those performances. So yeah, it's interesting, and it was all live. I mean, that's the other thing about it. It was
Right.
no pre-recording, whereas prior to that, rock and roll groups, they just mime their record, whatever. But with the Ed Sullivan Show, it was all live, and it was pretty much just one overhead mic that captured the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was live, folks.
Isn't that something? Yeah. One
Oh
mic.
yeah,
Yeah, from
yes,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Well, also in '67, the group performed for an audience of 200,000 at the Sidney Meyer Music Bowl in Melbourne.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And I think that's a Guinness record, isn't it? Still?
It is for the Southern Hemisphere, I believe,
It is.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a wonderful day, open air event. And yeah, we sang, I think we did about 6 or 8 songs on that occasion. And there was a huge um, army band behind us and a huge string orchestra and a full concert orchestra behind us, and it was a really memorable day. And again, there's a fair bit of visual of that on YouTube too.
YouTube. So those
Mm,
watching this can check that out as well. Check it out
yeah,
on YouTube.
yeah,
And then as well, speaking of TV specials, the Seekers Down Under from '67 as
yeah,
well
yeah.
had the largest audience ever.
Yeah, that
Wow.
was enormous. Yeah, I think we were only beaten by Diana and Prince Charles' wedding or something like that. Yeah,
Well, that's not too bad to come in second to
yeah,
that.
not bad at all.
Not bad.
And and regrettably, and Diana's funeral. The
Yeah.
coverage of that was, But
Oh,
there,
I know.
okay, we won't mention that. You can cut that out if you like,
Okay. All right. All right. Yes. Well,
in case
well,
someone thinks I'm being very
right. Yeah, that's not
unemotional.
something, yeah, you want
Mm,
to strive
yeah,
for. Well,
yeah,
uh, Judith left the band in early '68.
yeah,
Is that what kind of brought the band to an end? That,
yeah. We had an arrangement between the 4 of us that if any member wanted to leave, that they would give 6 months' notice. And Judith really wanted to get back to her solo performing, so she did. She gave 6 months' notice, and in fact, it was moved forward a little bit because the BBC, not knowing that we were planning to break up, the BBC approached our manager Eddie Jarrett and said we'd like to do a TV special, and then Eddie brought the BBC people into his confidence and said, look, the group's planning to break up. What about if we make the TV special their farewell performance? So we had 4 weeks cabaret performance at the Talk of the Town in June and early July of 1968, and then finishing on a Saturday night. And the BBC arranged that on the Sunday, the following day of their last day, we would go into the BBC studios and work live, perform live the farewell performance. So that's the way it worked. And so July the 8th, I'm pretty sure it was, of 1968, we went into the BBC studios and performed our whole show that we had been performing at the Talk of the Town with the BBC orchestra. And then at the end of it, Athol Guy said, "This is it, folks. Thank you. You've been lovely, and we thank you very much. But this is it. The carnival is over." And that was our. And then the following day, we went into the BBC studios with Michael Aspel and did an interview with him, and then kind of wrapped it up. And pretty soon after that, we all went our separate ways. I stayed on in England because I was married by then. I had my first child. My son Matthew was born, and I ended up staying there till 1978. But Judith, by that time, had met her future husband, Ron Edgeworth, and the two of them went off performing together all over the place and doing so very successfully. Athol Guy and Bruce Woodley went back to Australia. Bruce went on to write lots of jingles, and he became a very successful songwriter in Australia. And Athol went into politics, and he became a state politician for the Liberal Party in Victoria. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so that was
Is,
his next step.
is Athol still around? Is he still with us?
Oh yes, yeah. Athol and Bruce are still
Good.
alive. Yeah, in fact,
Okay.
we're going to get together in a couple of weeks' time. We get together whenever I go down to Melbourne. I don't live in Melbourne, so
Well,
yeah, we'll be together in a couple of weeks' time.
well, I think we could use him over here. Maybe he should run for a Democratic candidate over here.
That would be very interesting. Yes, yes, that would be very interesting. If he was allowed in, I
Yeah.
think the ICE agents might grab him quickly
Right.
at the border
Exactly.
and deny him entry.
Let's see what's on your phone. Yeah, I know.
Oh, well,
Exactly.
yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
I certainly wouldn't be allowed into America. That's for sure. For all the things that I've posted about what's happening over there currently.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
dear.
Well,
Yeah, it's
I may end up coming over there or some other country if it keeps getting
that.
more. Yeah, right. Get out.
Yes. We welcome Americans more than Americans welcome us, I think.
Right. It's not mutual per our president though, is it?
Not at the moment.
Not
No.
at the moment, no.
No.
Well, talk about how soon after you called it a day with the Seekers did you begin assembling the new Seekers?
Well, it was pretty soon after, because I'm now talking about the middle of 1968, and then my friend and business partner David Joseph and David was over in England managing another Australian act, Normie Rowe, and Normie had this band called the Playboys, and David and I we started to think about what I was going to do, and David said, "Look, why don't you do some solo work?" And I thought, well, okay, let's give that a try. And so he asked the Playboys to be a backing group, and they thought, okay, let's do that. And I recorded a single, and then. Then the single didn't take off, and the Playboys started writing their own songs, and they changed their name to Procession, and they were quite successful. So that whole possibility evaporated, and then over a couple of glasses of red wine, we thought, well, why not? The Seekers' name is so strong that it needs to be carried on. So David and I decided that we would put together a group, and it was in 1969, the following year after our original breakup, that we put the New Seekers together, and that was pretty much built around an Australian singer by the name of Marty Kristian, who was living in England at that time, and we auditioned. Put an ad in the paper, auditioned some people, and decided that instead of one girl, we would have two girls. And that was how that original lineup that you mentioned at the start of this interview came about. So the two girls were Eve Graham and Sally Graham. They weren't related. Eve Graham, her real name was Eve Beatson, but she assumed a performing name of her mother's. It was her mother's maiden name, I think, Graham. And so Sally Graham, Eve Graham, Chris Barrington, Laurie Heath, and Marty Kristian being the only Australian in the group. But then after about a year, Chris and Laurie and Sally decided that the direction of the group wasn't fitting in with their ideas, so they opted to leave, and they gave us some notice, and David and I auditioned a few other people, and we replaced the three of them after a year with Lynn Paul and Peter Doyle and Paul Layton. So it was a pretty seamless changeover, actually, and conducted with with some dignity. It wasn't acrimonious, and so that meant that we then had a pretty solid bunch of 5 people, 5 performers, and that was when David Mackay, the Australian record producer, came into the scene and started producing their records, and he came up with this version of "Look What They Done to My Song Ma,"
Yeah,
the Melanie Safka song,
Melanie.
and we had and the New Seekers had quite a hit with that,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
David produced more, and then the opportunity came up for to record some jingles for Coca-Cola.
yeah.
The Seekers had recorded some Coca-Cola jingles as well those years previously, but anyway, the New Seekers came up with the goods as far as the Coca-Cola jingles were concerned, and that's how I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing came about.
Yes, what a song! What a song! I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's the kind of song we need today. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You know, to
yeah. That's
bring
right, exactly.
to unify. I mean, the whole
To
world.
unify, yeah, rather than divide. Absolutely
Divide.
right. Goodness
Exactly.
gracious, yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
very
Maybe
much so.
maybe somebody will come out with
Oh
something.
boy,
Wouldn't
yeah,
that be well? With the Seekers, you were tapping into you know, Paul Simon
yeah,
and also Tom Springfield. With
yeah,
The New Seekers, it was Melanie, because
yep.
the other song was Beautiful People, the other song by Melanie. It
Oh yes, beautiful people. That's right. Yeah, and we did the Harry Chapin song "Circles,"
yeah,
and the uh, Delaney Bramlett song was yeah. Anyway, that other one, and so they really had quite a lot of success, and certainly in America, we did an American tour, and with the New Seekers, and they did a bit of television there as well.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well,
it
was
was
it
yeah.
Never Ending Song of Love?
Yeah,
That was
Never Ending Song of Love. Yeah, Never Ending Song of Love.
okay.
It was the Delaney
Delaney Bramlett.
Bramlett
Yeah. Yes,
Delaney Bramlett song,
that's
and that was good. But I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing kind of blitzed them all. Really,
okay.
it was
Yeah,
great. Yeah, we recorded 3 Coca-Cola jingles, I should say, and there's one other one that I think could have been bumped up into a proper song type of thing, as opposed to just being a jingle. But that didn't happen.
right, right.
And
Other
then
hits.
and then after that, I was writing songs with I was living in England still at that time, and writing songs with Tony McCauley and trying to come up with songs for the group. But eventually, Tony and Jeff, anyway, they wrote "You Won't Find Another Fool Like Me,"
Right, right.
which became, see, Eve Graham at that stage had been the main featured lead singer, and this "You Won't Find Another Fool Like Me" was written more with Lynn Paul in mind, and so they had a big hit with that. But in the meantime, the New Seekers had represented Britain in the Eurovision
Right.
contest of 1972. And how much do Americans know about Eurovision?
No, very little, very little, I
Yeah,
should say.
I'm not
Yeah.
surprised.
But wasn't the track Beg, Steal, or Borrow?
Beg, Steal, or Borrow
Yeah.
was the
The,
song that the
the
New Seekers
Eurovision.
had,
Big hit.
and in Eurovision, and we lost by 1 point.
1 point.
1 point. 1 point.
Oh,
Un point, Greg. Un
and
point.
to who? Who did you lose to?
We lost to Portugal or something like that. No, no, what was
Oh.
yeah, one of those big ballad type songs, you know.
And to this day you've never forgiven Portugal, have you?
No, never, never.
A grudge against Portugal. Oh,
Well,
that's funny.
no, never forgive those other countries that give 12 points because everything's in French there.
Yeah, right, yeah, that's right. Yes, yes, very true. I wanted to mention a couple of other hits real quick. An adaptation of Pinball Wizard. I wasn't aware of that. I guess I haven't heard.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah,
I hadn't heard
oh,
of it.
that was terrific. And again, spreading the love around. Marty Kristian did most of the lead singing in that. Peter Doyle, Marty Kristian, ooh, great singers. Um, Peter Doyle particularly had a fantastic voice. Anyway, the that was produced by an American producer, Michael Lloyd, and Tommy Oliver did the arrangement, did the orchestral arrangement for it, and it was an absolutely super version of Pinball Wizard.
Okay,
And
Michael
See Me,
Lloyd.
Feel Me.
Michael Lloyd. That sounds very familiar. He was West Coast, wasn't he? From like.
Yeah, West Coast producer, and yeah, young man. He was part of a trio as well of singers that included a couple of Australians, but yeah, a very talented young man, and he
Yeah.
did it all beautifully.
Right. Yeah, he worked with Mike Curb, Kim Fowley.
Yeah, Michael Cook.
Yes,
Yeah, Mike
yeah,
Cook. Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah,
So those.
that's
Wow.
right.
Okay.
Mm,
All
yeah,
right. Yes, and then I get a little sentimental over you. Was
yeah,
another hit
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That was.
Well, let me ask you. In subsequent years, were you a part of any of the New Seekers reunions?
I was, because there was another combination that David Joseph and I put together called Springfield Revival, and that included an Australian singer, Mick Flynn, and we advertised and found this lady singer, Donna Jones from Manchester, who became the lead singer, and a young man by the name of Ray Hoskins, and he was a kind of Tommy Steele type character, a very characterful young man, and only about 17 years of age when he joined us during that trio. But Mick Flynn and Donna Jones and Ray Martin was his stage name, but his real name Ray Hoskins. He lives in LA now. He's still there performing. He the three of them didn't know each other beforehand, but Mick and Donna married, and they're still married. And
Are they?
yeah, I did a bit of yentling there, got them together, and
Yeah.
they're a lovely couple. They have a beautiful daughter, and they live in England. And then when there was this possibility of reforming a group under the name New Seekers. Mick Flynn and Donna and another lady and Paul Layton from the original New Seekers, and another gentleman got together, and they recreated this group. So Paul Layton was really the only original member, and Mick and Donna were very closely involved with the New Seekers, not as performers in those earlier days, but then I think it was probably around the early part of the 2000s that they formed this group. And I went on stage with them in England in 2007, and performed alongside them, my little solo show in England. But that was the only connection that I've had with them, really, apart from keeping in touch with them as good friends. I stay with Mick and Donna when I'm in London, that sort of thing. So it works out really well that we still have that friendship
Yes.
through those decades.
Yes, yes, it is long-lasting friendship. There you go.
It is amazing. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk a little bit how you got into writing and producing TV jingles.
Well, it was something that I had started in England, and I had a business partner there, David Groom, and David was the business manager. He would approach advertising agencies, and I had some success there. Nothing to set the world on fire, but it also meant that at the same sort of time, I was co-writing songs with Tony Macaulay and Barry Mason. And at that time, in 1974, we had Tony Macaulay and I had quite a big hit with rejuvenating Dwayne Eddy's career with a song called "Play Me Like You Play Your Guitar," and that really revived his career. And I went on from there really to continue some co-writing and the odd jingle and things like that. But by that time, I had a daughter as well, and so we were thinking as the kids were growing up, do we want them to grow up in England or do we want them to grow up in Australia? And we opted for Australia. So in 1978, my family moved back to Australia, but back to Sydney this time, rather than Melbourne. And then that was when I just started getting around the advertising agencies and doing some more jingles. That was yeah.
Okay, and during the 80s, you played live quite a bit.
Yes, yeah.
Was that solo or as part of a band?
Well, yeah, again, it's funny sort of chronology. It's a bit difficult to keep up with, but again, in the mid-70s, Athol Guy and Bruce Woodley were still based in Melbourne, and a local record company, Astor Records, which was hooked up with Philips, they approached Athol and Bruce and said, "Look, what about the group reform? Is there any chance of the group reforming?" And they said, "No. Well, Judith, there's no way that Judith will get back involved at this stage." So they went looking for another female singer, and they found this lovely Dutch lady by the name of Louisa Whistling. And I was living in England, and they got in touch with me and said, "Look, this is what's happening. How about you come back to Australia and do some recordings, and we'll see what happens." So I did, and we made 2 albums. Bruce had written a song called "The Sparrow Song," which we recorded with Louisa as the lead singer, and that was a hit locally in Australia, but not anywhere else in the world. So we lost some momentum there. But then after I moved to back to Australia, we then decided to keep the Seekers name going with another with other lead singers, and that was my main musical activity actually. So I can quite honestly say that I'm the only member of the Seekers who's been in every iteration of the group, because I just carried right through like a steam train going through all the different lineups, and that was it. Yeah.
Wow,
So, but it's been such great fun.
I was going to say, I imagine it has. I imagine you've enjoyed the ride, right?
Indeed, very much so.
Well, talk a little bit briefly about your solo albums. 2004, Secrets of the Heart.
Yeah.
How long were you writing those tracks before?
Oh gosh, well, the Secrets of the Heart album carried material that I had been composing for about the previous 10 or 15 years, I suppose, and covered up a wide range of emotions and styles, but basically acoustic, I suppose. And I was very lucky that there's this wonderful man by the name of Marty Kristian, record producer and a wonderful musician who helped me with the production and playing extraneous other instruments that I couldn't. And so that was Secrets of the Heart. And then I found that I kept writing, and I had another album called Sunday, which I released because I did a major series of concerts in 2010. And then then I recorded another album. None of these albums set the world on fire by any means, but what I've done is I've found that there are people who have these albums that still come along to my solo concerts. So that's been comforting.
Yeah. Well, what about hearing from fans from way back, from the early days of the Seekers? You still hear from those fans?
Oh yeah, of course. And indeed, the current show that I have is that my lovely partner Elizabeth Hawkes and I developed a few years back. Is called Celebrating the Seekers, 60 years, and in that we've produced an audio-visual component that has some wonderful images of the group and some that haven't been seen before, and it's pretty much a chronological story of the group, but it goes even earlier than that, because it's almost a chronological story of me, but incorporating the Seekers, and so I go right back to the Triamics and those early days, and it's quite emotional, because there's a sequence in it where I pay tribute to Judith Durham, and she died in 2022. So 2022 August, and so it's a way of remembering her in the nicest possible way, because we were actually, as I mentioned earlier, we were actually like a family, and even though there are disagreements here and there, but nevertheless, we were a family, and she was like a little sister to all of us, and so this is my way of paying tribute to her. And the influence that she had. I mean, one of the great voices of our time, I reckon.
Oh, it is. It is. And I think other female singers maybe not try to emulate that in folk bands, but their voices were very similar.
Yeah.
I think she came out with that, was one of the early ones with that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I'm currently doing, and in about 2 weeks' time, I shall be hitting the road again and doing my solo presentation.
Oh, well, that sounds really good.
Yeah, it's good. It's great fun, apart from anything else.
Well, when you guys have, I don't want to go into all of the awards, but you've been granted so many awards in Australia over the years. But I think one that must make you feel pretty proud was in 2015, the Music Victoria Hall of Fame, being inducted into that.
Yeah, that was a big one. And in 1967, we were the Australians of the Year, and we've now got letters after our name, AO. So I'm Keith Potger, AO, pronounced Ow.
That's how you say that.
And it's Bruce Woodley, Ow, and Athol Guy, Ow, and Judith Durham, Ow. It's all.
I like that. I like that, Al. You have a good sense of humor, Keith.
Oh well, you got to keep laughing, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. You got to keep them in stitches. Right.
With people like Trump around, you got to keep smiling.
That's right. You got to try to find some humor in it. Try to. Right? Exactly. Well, you pray. I want you to pray for us, okay? Over here.
Dear.
keep us in your prayers, please, because way it's going.
Well, being an atheist, Greg, that could be a bit tricky for me, but I'll ask someone else to do it on my behalf.
All right. Well, wish us the best. Let's put it.
I will certainly send you my best wishes. That's right.
Because we're living in an upside down world right now. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. All right. Totally. Well, Keith, I want to thank you for your time and for sharing that journey, that musical journey, with me and with the viewers, and it's been very enjoyable. Most enjoyable.
Thank you. Well, it's been a lovely pleasure for me as well, and you've obviously done your homework, Greg. So that was good. And keep smiling and smile now.
Right. Now we can smile. You know,
Yeah,
I tell people, I said, I love doing the research and even tracking you guys down. I like that. Sometimes it's frustrating when it's a dead end, but I think maybe I miss my calling of being a private detective or private eye, you know, because I enjoy that. I enjoy that kind of work, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
that's part of it. So I like the research.
Yeah, lovely. All right.
All right. Well, all the
Good.
best to you, okay?
Yep.
Keith,
And all the best to you too. Yeah.
all right.
Cheers.